Imagine a family torn apart by the legacy of a legend, where a battle over wealth leads to heartbreak and tragedy. This is the untold story of the Marley family's darkest chapter, the loss of Anthony Marley. Stay tuned as we uncover the haunting events that shook the Marley family to its core. On February 19, 1990, the Marley family faced yet another devastating loss when Anthony Marley, Bob Marley's younger brother, tragically lost his life during an armed confrontation with the police. This incident marked a new chapter of sorrow for the Marley family, particularly for the family matriarch, Cedella Booker, who had already endured the heartbreak of losing Bob to cancer just 9 years earlier. The circumstances surrounding Anthony's death were tied to the complex and bitter legal battle that erupted over Bob Marley's estate after his passing, a dispute that would stretch on for nearly 3 decades. This saga not only tested the endurance of those Bob left behind, but also, tragically, claimed the life of his younger brother. To understand how this all unfolded, we need to go back to the moment when the top gong himself, Bob Marley, passed away. On September 21, 1980, Bob Marley collapsed while jogging in Central Park, New York City, during the American leg of his Uprising album tour. When he was taken to the hospital, doctors discovered that the cancer, first detected in his toe 3 years earlier, had spread throughout his body. The prognosis was grim. Bob was given only a few months to live. Despite his terminal condition, Bob Marley chose not to draft a will, as doing so conflicted with his Rastafarian beliefs. Additionally, he harbored a deep distrust of lawyers and accountants, whom he considered to be untrustworthy. When Bob Marley passed away in May 1981, his estate was left without a will, resulting in an intestate situation, a legal term used when someone dies without leaving a will. Under Jamaican law, this meant that Bob's widow, Rita Marley, was entitled to a portion of his estate alongside their children. However, during the administration of his estate, it was discovered that Bob's legal and financial advisors had engaged in questionable activities, bringing the process to a halt. As if this wasn't complicated enough, numerous individuals in Bob's life claimed they had a stake in his estate and took their grievances to court. This led to a prolonged legal battle involving several parties: Bob's widow, Rita, the members of his band, the Wailers, who were fighting for royalties, Chris Blackwell, the owner of Island Records, who sought to acquire Bob Marley's catalog of songs, copyrights, and assets, and Mutual Security, a Jamaican bank appointed by the court as the estate's administrator. Adding to the complexity was a publishing company called Cayman Music, owned by American entrepreneur Danny Sims and singer Johnny Nash. Early in his career, Bob Marley had been signed to Sims and Nash's companies as an artist under Jad Records and as a songwriter under Cayman Music. They were demanding a $6 million payout as damages for the alleged breach of their contract with the late Top Gong. The involvement of all these parties, combined with the tens of millions of dollars at stake, turned the lives of those Bob Marley left behind into a living nightmare. Despite the complexities of Bob Marley's family life, he had always managed to keep things steady, maintaining unity among his various children, their mothers, his bandmates, and even his extended family. However, after his passing, chaos descended upon the Marley clan. External forces, including lawyers and banks, began to close in, and the worst part of it all was that the family itself became deeply divided. This division ultimately led to the tragic death of Bob's younger brother, Anthony Booker. Anthony was the youngest child of Cedella Booker, born to her American husband, Edward Booker, whom she married after leaving Jamaica and settling in the United States in 1963. Cedella and her family lived in Delaware, but after Edward's death in 1976, Bob Marley decided to relocate his mother to the warmer climate of Miami, Florida, as the cold in Delaware was exacerbating her arthritis. Bob instructed his manager, Don Taylor, to find a suitable home for his mother, and Taylor secured a beautiful house in a nice South Dade, Miami neighborhood, which Bob purchased in 1977. Cedella moved into the new house with her 3 children, and it soon became the Marley family's base in the U.S. Bob's son, Rohan, and daughter, Julia, spent a lot of time there, as did Bob's wife and girlfriends, who were frequent visitors. Shortly after acquiring the house, Bob received the devastating news of his cancer diagnosis. By 1980, after collapsing in New York, Bob sought refuge in the Miami home, spending his final days there with his family before passing away at the University of Miami Hospital in May 1981. Following Bob's death, the legal battles over his estate began, throwing Anthony Booker's life into turmoil. At the heart of these disputes was the very house Bob had purchased for his mother, the only home Anthony had known since he was 6 years old. Unfortunately, Bob had bought the house in his name, and when the fight over his assets began, Mutual Security Bank, which had been appointed to administer the estate, attempted to reclaim the house as part of Bob's estate, with the intention of selling it along with the rest of his assets to Chris Blackwell. This situation dragged Cedella directly into the fray, subjecting her to immense pressure, intimidation, and harassment from lawyers and banks, all while the threat of eviction loomed over her and her children. The impact on young Anthony was profound. From the age of 10, he watched his mother endure relentless harassment, and by the time he was 19, the strain became too much for him to bear. On February 14, 1990, Anthony, who had just returned from Jamaica, locked himself in his bedroom, where he spent 4 days in isolation, fasting and praying. On February 19th, he took a 12-gauge fire weapon and walked into a nearby shopping mall. The police were called, and after a standoff, Anthony opened fire and was tragically shot by the police at just 19 years old. Toxicology tests revealed that there were no drugs or alcohol in his system, and he had no criminal record or known medical issues. Anthony was simply a victim of severe depression and deep-rooted sadness brought on by the bitter battle over his brother's estate. A year after Anthony's death, the Jamaican courts awarded the Marley estate, including the house Bob had purchased for his mother, to the Marley family, ensuring that Cedella's home was safe. However, the cost of this legal victory was devastating. Not only had Anthony lost his life, but Cedella's only daughter, Pearl Livingston, who was also Bunny Wailer's half-sister, fell into depression and drug abuse, derailing her promising musical career. Incredibly, the battle over Bob Marley's empire continued for another 20 years, finally concluding in 2012 after a trademark infringement lawsuit between Anthony's other brother, Richard, and Bob's children was settled out of court. Today, the Marley empire is valued at around $200 million, generating $16 million in 2023 alone. Yet, despite all this wealth, it's a poignant irony that Bob Marley himself did not place much value on material possessions, quite the opposite of many people around him. One of his last and most famous statements before passing was, "Money can't buy life." If he had known about the chaos and costly battles over his assets that would follow his death, it's likely he would have given it all away before his time came. The Marley family's story is a powerful reminder of the human cost that can come with fame and fortune. While Bob Marley's legacy lives on through his music, the pain and sorrow experienced by his loved ones reveal a side of the story that few ever see. If this deep dive into the Marleys' tragic past moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more compelling tales of the untold struggles behind the legends. Until next time, remember, money can't buy life.